What's up, everybody? Josh Button Podcast, episode 22. We are getting somewhere in these episodes. It's been an interesting couple weeks, no? Last time I was on, we talked a little bit about Wag the Dog and what was going on really in Israel and Palestine. And just before this, I swore, I guess a lot of people probably did, that we were getting somewhere. Maybe people were starting to see the strategies involved in fake news and in what was highlighted in the current news cycle. I had sincerely hoped so, at least. I thought people had caught on to the Ukraine money laundering operation. And before that, there was COVID and there was the border wall issue. There's just been so many different things in the last few years that should have highlighted how our fear, our emotions are manipulated by fear, and that we are coaxed into, well, irrational and illogical conclusions pretty easily. And that hopefully people had momentum on their side in discovering the reality that we were being manipulated and we were being, used. Energy harvesting, I've called it many times, because they do these almost borderline spells on people. When you repeat a lie enough, it becomes factual to a large percentage of the population because they listen to it, and never really seek to obliterate propaganda or even seek truth or anything anything alternative to the mainstream narrative. I did think we were getting somewhere, and then boom, Israel and Palestine. This ongoing feud, if that's what you want to call it, occupation, some would call it. Some call it biblical and prophetic times that we're in because of escalation. And this isn't the first escalation. This has happened over and over in our lifetimes. But is it prophetic, or are people forcing the hand of prophecy? Are they attempting to force us into World War III between the Arab states and Israel, and bring, of course, the United States into it, because Israel is our greatest ally and we do support Israel and their right to defend themselves. And, well, we've sent them more money than we've sent Ukraine, which, that's a lot of money, guys. A lot of support. And we've done so many things on behalf of Israel in our lifetimes, we surely wouldn't ponder the possibility that they are not our allies and that they are not our friends and that they may not have the best intentions, or that even Israel was created for nefarious purposes. But the Balfour Declaration and that occupation of land, it came about through war. It came about through chaos and destruction. Orthodox Jews that actually protest on the side of Palestinians claim that their Messiah has not come back, and that since they denied Jesus Christ was the Messiah, that they were still waiting on their Messiah, and until he were on the scene, well, they were supposed to be living in exile. So there are subgroups to this idea that Israel belongs to the Jews. There are Orthodox Jews who fundamentally believe that they are occupying a land that they have not and should not have been granted yet because the Messiah has not returned. However, Zionists do not view it this way. They view it as the return of this land to the Jewish people, and that they were entitled to it, and that it's going to grow because there is a Greater Israel Project, which, if you're not aware of, is an expansion of the Israel state. And it's huge what they want to do, what they plan to do, and what they will take, bottom line, what they will take. And it's not stopping where the borders are now. And the domain will grow according to their own beliefs. This is not up for debate. I hope people have come to the conclusion that the things that we are being shown are shown to us for a reason. And I wanted to talk about a little bit of it. It's called Atrocity Propaganda. And this is not the first time it's been used. It certainly will not be the last time. Dare I say that the school shootings in the US are atrocity propaganda to get us to concede our gun rights. I 100% believe that. I'm not saying that the school shootings are fake, even if maybe some of them are, or are false flags, or are manipulations of the press and the FBI and the gunmen themselves. But the psychiatric drugs that these people are on doesn't really make the mainstream news. They don't talk about a lot of important factors in these things, and you have to ask yourself why. Is this nothing more than atrocity propaganda to take our guns? And if we were to give up our guns, who would we be? What would we be? If you saw video and photo or were presented evidence of people coming across a border and killing innocent civilians, would that change your mind on the subject? I think gun control is dead in the water when that actually becomes public domain. When people are aware that this is a possibility, why in the world would we give up our rights to defend ourselves? Nobody is coming to save you. This we should know by now. We should all have an abundance and a plethora of evidence that you will have to defend yourself if a threat is on your doorstep. That's just the bottom line. Atrocity propaganda. Let's go into a couple quotes because the script is old. Mr. Selton Delmer said atrocity propaganda is how we won the war. He's talking about World War II. Atrocity propaganda is how we won the war, and we're only really beginning with it now. We will continue this atrocity propaganda. We will escalate it until nobody will accept even a good word from the Germans, until all the sympathy they may still have abroad will have been destroyed, and they themselves will be so confused that they will no longer know what they are doing. Once that has been achieved, once they begin to run down their own country and their own people, not reluctantly, but with eagerness to please the victors, only then will our victory be complete. It will never be final. Re-education needs careful tending, like an English lawn. Even one moment of negligence, and the weeds crop up again, those indestructible weeds of historical truth. Please ponder this. Selton Delmer, he's a former British chief of black propaganda, and he said after the German surrender in 1945 in a conversation with the German professor of international law, Dr. Friedrich Grimm, this statement should be studied, should be understood. We were always told about the propaganda of the Germans and how powerful it was. We had no reason to question it. We had no reason to ask ourselves about propaganda being a two-way street. Obama, oh man, I forget the act, what it was, but he permanently legalized propaganda against the United States citizens. It was not legal before Obama. Thank you, oh bummer, you bum. Let's go into another quote. Benjamin Netanyahu. He said, America is a golden calf and we will suck it dry, chop it up and sell it off piece by piece until there is nothing left but the world's biggest welfare state that we will create and control. This is what we do to countries that we hate. We destroy them very slowly. And that was recorded at the Fink's Bar in Jerusalem in 1990. Sound communist to you? It's as communist as it gets. Benjamin Netanyahu. Oh, Benji. If they're willing to use atrocity propaganda repeatedly because of how well it works, to be quite honest. We heard the stories of the beheaded babies going around, and people were quick to rush to their social media and spout all kinds of things about revenge and about bulldozing all of Gaza and going in and being ruthless with their retribution, without thinking twice that they may be being manipulated. This is atrocity propaganda. This is how it works. There's a script, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. You just can't. This is absolutely, it is atrocious. That's a great word for it. It is atrocious. How could we be so manipulated so easily that we would completely turn a blind eye to the women, children, and civilians of Palestine when, if one killing just doesn't justify another. One murder does not justify another. Israel is one of the most secure places in the world, if not the most secure place in the world. There are plenty of testimonies out there about how this just doesn't make sense, that the Iron Dome wasn't working, that they didn't see people crossing the border, that they allowed this. They had to have allowed this. They had to have turned away from the information, as Egypt had warned them days and weeks before that something big was coming. They had to turn a blind eye and a deaf ear to this information for this to be perpetrated the way it was. So you have to ask yourself, was this a sacrifice? Are they willing to sacrifice their own to further an agenda, the Greater Israel Project? And the answer is emphatic yes. 9/11 was not what we were presented, and we should all know that by now. But was it a sacrifice? Were our own citizens sacrificed to further an agenda? I dare say, absolutely. The Patriot Act, we lost many of our rights. We take off our shoes at the airport. We do all kinds of things just because of the 9/11 attacks. Lucky Larry Silverstein and the insurance collection was just the tip of the iceberg. Let's be honest. The Patriot Act and all the consequences of 9/11 were far greater than the actual event itself. Unfortunately, we say that in spite of the lives that were lost then, the long-term effects and the lives that would be lost going forward abroad, it's heinous. It's absolutely heinous to think about. How many Iraqis died? How many Afghanistan innocent people in both those countries had to be slaughtered because this propaganda, because atrocity propaganda that we all bought hook, line, and sinker and demanded that justice be done. And it wasn't, ladies and gentlemen, it wasn't. We were lied to about Osama bin Laden. Osama bin Laden was not responsible, and he openly dismissed the claims. He denied it. If he were responsible, he would have owned that and been an absolute hero and a martyr when he was killed eventually. But he denied it. We used him. We abused him. We funded him when it worked for us. Then we made him the scapegoat on an inside job. That is atrocious, let alone the propaganda and everything that they manipulated us with after the fact. Look at Libya, Gaddafi. You go back and you read the things that Gaddafi did for his people and what he was doing for his people and pulling them off of the fiat standard and returning a gold standard and paying his people dividends off of their oil. He did free healthcare. He did so much for the citizens of his country, and we most definitely used atrocity propaganda to have him killed by his own people and, of course, by mercenaries. Absolutely disgusting. Isaac Herzog the other day said something about it being ridiculous sentiment that all the Palestinians weren't responsible. You have to think about it, the actual statement he made. He's claiming that there are no Palestinians that should not be held responsible for the attack on Israel because they were all compliant. and that they could have overthrown Hamas and the leadership in their own country. And since they didn't, they were at war with Israel, and they were all compliant, and that they were all responsible, and that they were at war with them. So Israel could clearly justify the murdering of children, of babies, of women, of innocent people that want nothing to do with the war, that are as poverty-stricken as you can get in this world and just want to be granted the dignity of life. They just want to live their lives. They cut these people's food supply, their electricity, their water. And then you see citizens in Israel who are mocking them on social media, running their water from the tap and drinking their water from the tap. I posted something that was so disgusting to me. It was so disgusting to watch this man mock the Palestinians, his neighbors, that had no power and had no water, as he turned his lights off and on, and as he drank water from the faucet, and as he played on his social media. I don't think I've been that disgusted in a long, long time. It was really gut-wrenching. We got to think about the consequences of war sooner or later, especially as Americans who sit over here with an abundant life. We sit over here with things that we take for granted every day, that people around the rest of the world are just infinitely should be infinitely jealous of, but they're denied. They're denied so many of the luxuries and of the comforts that we have here, and we take them for granted. It's such a shame that so many people, especially here in the United States, just take it for granted. Are complainers. They're entitled. This liberal ideology where they're talking about the patriarchy and all of the sins of the past, while they sit on their cell phones and they go to Starbucks and they don't even work jobs. A lot of these people that can survive here most of their lives without working, without really working. I watched another video. I believe it was I don't know if it was Turkish or Syrian child, but he was picking up plastic and trash. He was picking up trash to earn pennies on the day. And a tourist asked him, or maybe a missionary of some sort, somebody asked him, why are you working? And he said that he was going to give it to his mom, and that they were saving money for books for school. And the guy gave him some money, and he said, what are you going to do with it? And he's like, oh, I'll give it to my mom to help us. They're going to buy food. They're going to buy food. They're going to put shoes on the kids' feet. There's nothing more disgusting to me than thinking Westerners are sitting on their Instagram and on their social media and are calling for war and destruction abroad against people that are living in poverty and have absolutely nothing to do with terrorism or war, or whether or not they have their power turned off or on by someone else. It's disgusting. Sooner or later, we have to wake up to the reality. And I'm afraid it's going to come through hard times, and that hard times are inevitable because of the willingness of people to turn a blind eye and to judge and to completely be okay with death and destruction as long as it isn't on their doorstep. Maybe that's exactly what it's going to take to wake people up. I hope not. They say it's inevitable, that everything is cyclical, but for God's sake, have some compassion for people on this earth that are just trying to survive, that do not have even the basic freedoms that you do. I am incredibly hopeful that we are coming to the conclusions that war is wrong and that there is no justification for war. Not provocation, not land ownership, not expansionist ideologies. There are certainly people that wish to enslave the rest of us because it's A, prophesied to them, or B, They just believe they are better than the rest of us. Once you see that and you confront that head on, perhaps you understand that even if you live in the lap of luxury right now, it doesn't necessarily mean you always will. The time for compassion is now, and I'm not talking about one-sided compassion for people that feel like they've been attacked and now go get retribution. I'm talking about compassion across the board. We need to restore the spirit of freedom and survival and being left alone. The governments should not be granted all this authority to do as they see fit, especially abroad. Right here, we need to fix the issues right here in our backyard. I'm going to do my best not to get angered and judgmental over the people that are, taking this approach and that believe some of this propaganda and get their emotions twisted into condemnation of people that they do not know. I don't want to have this emotional tie, this weight. None of us should. Dream of a better future. Dream of a future where everybody's got the dignity and the ability to live their lives and have the abundance that we so should deserve. Because I believe all of us on this earth should live abundantly, not just a few entitled, and not just one country that thinks they are the police of the world. Please, ladies and gentlemen, stop calling for war and for retribution and for judgment by man. We will all be judged one day. I do believe that. This is the Josh Button Podcast. I can't even ask anybody to like and subscribe to this one, but perhaps do us all a different favor, a different service. Share the message of peace. Let's all share the message of peace. Forget retaliation. Forget it. We've all been attacked in one way or another at one time or another. It's time for forgiveness and for peace. Anyways, I will talk to you all soon. This is the Josh Button Podcast. Thanks for joining me. Have a great day.